All right. Okay. Everything looks good. So in the last part, I guess we discussed how Apache can be set up from both CentOS perspective and Ubuntu perspective. And you see further, we wrote two different playbooks. So one playbook was setting up the things from CentOS operating system, and this thing is setting up the things from Ubuntu point of view. So if I see both these changes, right? So now what I want to do is I want to make sure a common playbook should be written in such a way that based upon the conditions, we want to figure out whether we want to install Apache or HTTPD on what condition means OS condition. Same thing like in our AWS AMI sessions. So we took the AMI ID, then we took the decision if AMI ID is this one, go with this setup. If not, if your AMI ID is this one, go with this setup. The exact same thing we will try to get it done with the Ansible. So for that, we have something called like conditions. Let's see how we can use them. So now we know there are two different things, right? Okay, so for this part, I'll do something like this. Copy 03 http.yaml and I'll say 07 multi playbook, or let's say multi-platform, an example. Right? Multi-platform.yaml. And also this is with respect to HTTPD. And also it should have the things with respect to Apache as well, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll write this content to this file as well. This content I'm going to update within my 7th playbook. Now, if you look at my 7th playbook, it will be pretty lengthy. Now, okay, one more thing. I removed a couple of instances in the last part, so I only kept N1 and N3, like one CentOS and one Ubuntu I kept, remaining else I removed it off. So I'll just go and update the things accordingly in my inventory path. If not, it will start throwing up the errors. So what I'll do is, in my host file, as of now, we have only N1 and N3, one CentOS, one Ubuntu server. So as I don't need, I'm just gonna comment this off. Okay, yes, now I'm gonna save this. So as of now, we have only couple of servers. They are part of different group, but we can call them using a common attribute called all, right? Yes. I'll go to this playbook. Now I'll say my host is, right? Yes. Why? Because both Ubuntu and CentOS should be taken into consideration. Now, if I directly run this part, this playbook will definitely fail or give some kind of errors. I'll show you now. Okay, let's remove these separators and all this. So this is supposed to make sure Apache is set up both on CentOS and as well as Ubuntu servers. So now if I go ahead and save this and I'll start executing this. Just a second. Ansible playbook, and then we'll try to execute the 7th playbook. So this one, few things will get passed, few things will get failed. I mean, like, I hope you got the point. Things related to HTTPD will pass on CentOS server. Things related to Ubuntu will pass on Ubuntu server, but either of the things cross, vice versa, they will get failed. So CentOS will fail on Ubuntu, vice versa, Ubuntu will fail on CentOS part. You see? So one failed there and one failed here. So that is expected because of the platform mismatch. Now what I want to do is, so here I'll use a concept called as condition. So in what kind of scenarios you can use conditions is if you have multi-platform setup, and not only this example, any other platform you work with, right? So let's say your environment is made up of different types of servers. Now in that scenario, you can't go ahead and write multiple playbooks and start maintaining them. So you want to do some specific task, but it should be done across all the platforms in one go. Then you need to have some conditions into place. So here what I'm taking OS as the condition, but it does not mean that you should take only OS. You can take anything. I hope you got the point. You can take OS, you can take IP address, you can take host names, which are differentiated. Got the point? Now the question, how am I going to fetch those values? What value I need actually? Here, if I want to make some decision, what is the decision you need to make? First thing that you need to identify. Here, the problem is based upon the OS, we are figuring out the things, correct? So how am I going to fetch the OS value? From where? From the nodes which we have. N1, N3 are the two nodes. So what is the OS of N1? What is the OS of N3? You need to pick it up. We know if I go to AWS, then what, you remember that concept? Metadata. We use the concept called as AWS metadata. It was fetching the AMI ID and it is giving you. But how Ansible knows about AWS things? Does not know, right? It only knows about the system internals. That's where you remember I said there is one task. You remember every playbook while you execute, an implicit task will run, which is called as gathering facts. I said later I'll explain it. Now comes this picture. Now this comes into the picture. So what this gathering facts actually does, I mean, like this task that is running right every time, it will collect the system information. What information? Everything. What OS, what is the RAM, what packages are installed, what is your system memory, everything, storage, CPU information. It grabs all the information using the gathering facts. So how it runs behind the scenes is there is a special module called as setup module. Like how we used file module, package module, service module, right? So similarly, there is something called like setup module called Ansible. You see here, guys, it's directly explaining you. Did you get the point? So it says this setup module is automatically called by playbooks to gather the useful variables. I mean, like that's also variable kind of thing. If you remember, AMI underscore ID equal to some value, in IP address equal to some value, host name equal to some value, instance ID equal to some value. It's basically a variable which stores the data. Now we are going to use this thing. And also it says it can also be directly executed. How? Let me show you now how to fetch the value. So we have two nodes, N1 and N3, right? So this is how you need to call the module, guys. Just a second. Ansible. First I'll say N1 hyphen M setup module. This one also does not require any kind of arguments. It's just like picking up the information, right? Okay. Now let me go ahead and execute this thing. Ansible N1 machine hyphen M setup module, right? So it gives me lots of information. So once I hit enter, now, so you can see some information, like lots of information popped out here. But what we can do is we will use a pager, right? We will feed it to more so that we can read the output. You see, Ansible facts, it started gathering your information. It's your IP addresses, what is your system architecture, what is your BIOS update, from where you got it, what is the image you are using, right? And if I just keep on hitting enter, when the Ansible time, you see date, your what do you say, IP address, broadcast address, gateway address, all the networking related things. Then your devices, XVDA, XVDF, your storage is like around 8 gigabytes. Then what version of operating system you are using. Right now, didn't it pick up this information? Now, where is our information coming from? Ansible underscore distribution. Right? So using this value, I can know if what OS we are using. Now, these values can be fetched inside your playbooks. Getting the point is, so I can use this particular value inside my playbook to do some kind of decision making, like how you did it with the metadata concept. So not only this, you'll see lots of other information. You see what is your home directory, right? Then what are the variables that are there as for your server, right? Environment variables. And you can see all the packages that got installed, networking related things. So it picked up all the information that is available from the server. Now this is CentOS one. Entry. This is Ubuntu server. You can see this address got changed. Its AMID is different. So I'll just scroll down and I'll just show you the OS information. With that, we can confirm it has a different platform. See, so much information. Your storage. Now you see this. So this confirms that we do have some common key, but different values. Now, what is the common key across both the places? Ansible underscore distribution. Now, what I'll do, I'll copy this value. This time, instead of more, Ansible underscore distribution. We know it is Ubuntu. We know if I pass N1, it will be and best thing if I say on. Now, can't I use these values to do some decision making? Of course. Why? Because key is same. There also key was same, value was different. On that basis, we are going with the condition, right? Now I'm going to write the exactly same condition. So for that, in Ansible, so if you have some kind of arbitrary code, right, you can use conditions like how you go with if and else, right? Similarly, we got these conditions. Like I'll show you one example with this condition. So this task will only execute when this is correct. I hope you're getting the logic. Now what I'll do, I'll take the same thing into consideration. I'll say when my Ansible distribution is CentOS, then use the yum module to do the installation and go with the process. When my Ansible underscore distribution is Ubuntu, then use apt to go and start doing the installation part. In that way, what happens? Condition analysis will be done. If condition is met, like if it is true, this part of the statement will be executed. If not, the other part of the statement will start going with the execution part. That's what we are going to do with this part. Getting the point is, not only this, now you can do the same thing. So imagine for your CentOS, you don't need to install any Git. Sorry, for Ubuntu, you don't need to install it, but for CentOS, you need to install it, right? You can write the condition once again. So Git should only get installed when Ansible underscore distribution is equal to CentOS. Got the point, right? Now let's use the same thing now. I'll take this as a thing. Now I'll just go ahead and what I'll do, I'll start modifying this playbook. Now, so this task, where it should get executed? When, in which condition? When Ansible underscore distribution is equal to the value which we saw in that particular screen. So I'll say same thing. So here, when what he said, Ansible SC Linux underscore status equal to this one, right? But for us, it was different. For us, what it was giving us? Ansible underscore distribution, but the value I need to check. So this is important. Capital C, capital OS, CentOS, right? Okay. When Ansible underscore distribution is equal to Which one? This is the condition. Now, even though this is executed on node 3, condition does not match. Getting the point is? Why? Because Ansible underscore distribution, it will be equal to CentOS only for node 1 condition, not for node 3 condition. So for node 3, this will get skipped. Now I'll do the same thing. Now here onwards, things get changed. Should it get executed on CentOS? No. It is apt related thing, meaning it should get only execution on the node 3, which is of type what? Correct. Now did you get the point is what I did? So I made sure that condition is met. On that basis, we are going and checking out the things. Now let's try to execute the same playbook. Earlier it got failed because there was some kind of issues with the OS part. Now let's see if it gets executed. There was no issue at all and it got skipped respectively. So things which are not required on CentOS, they did not get executed. Exactly same with things which are not required for Ubuntu, they also did not got executed. So this is how you can use the conditions. I just took the OS, but like I said, you can take anything from the values. So whatever the facts you are gathering, right? So based upon that fact, any kind of condition you can take into consideration. Clear is? I hope now you got the point, right? Okay, perfect. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can start working with some dynamic things. So now you got to know we can use the conditions. Now, let's say in this particular scenario, guys, I want to make some changes on my CentOS server with port numbers. So currently, if I look at this N1 server, this is where my site is loading. I want my site to run on port number. How I need to do it manually? You guys did it, changing the port numbers. Tomcat, but this one you guys tried it. And like, why am I trying to say is because if the requirement comes that it should not run on this port, it needs to run on some other port. You need to know how manually it works. Like I already said, if you don't know how to do it manually, there is nothing you can do it from Ansible. Right? Okay. In case you did not go through that, right? Let me show you how we do it manually. Actually, I'll take one more server. I'll go through all those particular steps. Then we will try to kind of exactly do the same thing within the Ansible parts. I don't need this N3 server. I'll launch a new instance. I'll just call it as N2. And also what I'll do is instead of going and again modifying the address and all that, I'll simply apply the same address base so that it would be easy for me to check the things. so that I don't need to modify once again the address. If not, again, I need to go and add new address, right? So I'm just avoiding that. Okay, no need. Just give it, N2 will come up. Then I'll log in into N2. We'll do it manually first. I'll show you how you can do those changes. Now the exact changes, we need to apply it from the Ansible once again. Let's give it some time. Now we know this is a brand new server, so it does not have anything, right? So all the installation will directly use the playbook so that it will be quick and faster. I don't need to do anything. So what I'll do is simply, we already have our playbook, right? I'll just execute it. Let me just check if the connectivity is established. Ansible, all -m. Acha, okay. All right. Why N3 is there? Acha, okay. We removed N3, right? Okay. Sudo ctc Ansible host file. Okay, here the problem is this. Here earlier we had the same address. So the address is already registered within our what do you say host file. The same address. So that's the reason why it is not allowing us to go with the connection. So what I'll do is I'll go into this file. It registered all the nodes, whatever we connected. I'll just clean it off so that that conflict will get resolved. Just empty that file. Now you see it started working. Just like why? Because we use the same address. That's the reason why we got that issue. If not, you'll not get that issue. Right? Okay, fine. Now we are good. So both the servers are communicating. I'm pretty much sure that I can use my address to go ahead and run the things off. Right? Okay. Now I'm going to say Ansible. So what is this playbook? Last one which I written. The third playbook I can execute, right? Or even I can execute the seventh playbook also. Why? Because already it has conditions. It will only connect to centers and starts going with the execution. N2 it was not installed with anything. So we are just going through the installation once again. Perfect. So all these are Ubuntu related things. They got skipped. Now we are pretty much sure If I take N2 address, it's working up. But our goal is what, where it should run actually? 9090, right? It got failed. Now, if you want to change the port numbers and start working with it, you have some series of steps that you need to follow. Get your machine first. Sudo vi. There's a file called /etc httpd configuration. Did you check this file anytime while going through Linux? No? Okay. So in case you don't know, this is the configuration file of Apache web server. Okay. So all your web server settings, they are right. They are coming from this file. So this is called Apache configuration file. Okay. This is the path. And you guys need to know. I'm just showing it here, but you can actually Google it, or you can go ahead and search blogs to find out what is the config files for respective things. All right. Okay. Now, if I open this particular file here, right? Okay. Lots of information is being, a lot of comments are there. Hashes, like I said, there are comments. You just scroll down a little bit. This line is responsible for making your Apache run on port number 80. Our goal is what? Where am I supposed to run it? On port number 9090, right? Now I'll start modifying it. Okay. Right, yes, I modified it to 9090. Now I'll make the changes. So just modifying the changes will not make the application work. How does Apache know that I did the modification or it? You're supposed to restart it. So whenever you modify the config file, 100% you need to go through the restart. When I try to restart it, now let's see what happens. This command you're already aware of. It failed. Reason because whenever you modify configurations, what configurations? The configurations which came as the system defaults, there is one security layer on your Linux machines. Generally, we call it as hardening, server hardening, we call it. Here, this module name is called as SC Linux. This SC Linux, what it does is, if you are making some default, some custom configurations on top of default, it will not allow it. So there is different things that you can do. There is something called like SC context and all these commands, but simply, if you want to make sure that these changes are applied, you need to set your SC Linux to something called like permissive mode. Default is enforcing mode. So you got this command for that. Manual చేసింది. That is nothing but manual restart. AWS server వేరు, Apache HTTP software. We are talking about software, not the server, right? So now it says this is currently in the enforcing mode. If the mode is set to enforcing, your changes will not be taken into effect. So you need to do something called like permissive mode. So how to set permissive mode? There is a command like get enforce, set enforce. 1 means enforcing, 0 means permissive. Are you getting the point? Now what I'll do is, I'm saying set the SC Linux mode to permissive. Is it permissive now? Earlier when we started, it was what? Enforcing. Now I set it to permissive. Now I'm trying to restart. Did it fail this time? How I know? Well, like I went through the administration, I have this knowledge. But that's what I'm trying to say to you, that if you know manually the administration part, then only you can work with Ansible. That is pretty straightforward. So that is your responsibility to find out in your organizations with which app you are working with, how that goes manually. Then you try to apply the same thing from the Ansible point of view. Now I restarted, right? Let's verify if it really worked or not. Is it working? I hope now you got the point. Now, whatever these commands we did in here, we need to exactly keep it in the Ansible format. Make sense, guys? Now, let's take all these options what we applied, and then we will go ahead with the what do you say, our Ansible playbook. We know this is where the Ansible playbook resides. Next, we updated those changes. Now we are clean with our entire repository. Now I'm going to start preparing a new playbook. So this playbook, what it should do, it should modify the configurations. Are you getting the point, guys? Now what I'll do here is I'll say copy 0 3 03 and I'll say 08 hyphen port config.yaml. Getting the point is, so we are taking the port configuration into what is a picture and start modifying it. Okay. Now you figure out what are all the things we need if I want to make it work. First thing is what we need to change. No, first thing, like according to the manual approach, the first thing is what? Change port number in which file? That's the first change. What's the next change? Once you do this, sorry? I'll make sure that's it, right? I went there, modified the port, then I said SC Linux as permissive. What's the next thing? Once I do these 3 steps, then the port will be modified. Now I need to do the same thing from the Ansible perspective, right? Okay. Now what? I need to modify this file. Which file? etc httpd conf httpd.conf. There are 2 different ways you can modify this. So one is you can do multiple ways. You can check like this. You can give regular expression. So module is this one only. The module name is replace. You need to give the path of the file. Then you need to see what you want to like search, like what 80, whatever you want. that you need to replace with this. So here, maybe you can find this. Replace in this file. This TCP out is there, right? It is nothing but listen. Listen, S search all. Then whatever the pattern, like what after this thing, port 22, you replace it with whatever the options you want, 12, something like that. You can go with this, which is a little bit confusing. Instead, you have a better approach. Now, every time I do this change, will it be registered in GitHub? No, right? Why? Because file is written here, but change happens where? On this machine. I hope you are getting the logic. You wrote the playbook in workstation. Fine, that's good. But the effect happens where? In the worker node. Will it be triggered in Git? No, right? But what I can do is I have a separate approach to work for this, which is much more better than going and replacing and all that work. You remember there was something called like which module? Copy module. What it is saying? Files to remote locations. I can give some source and destination. We already have configured the settings of HTTPD configuration in one of the servers. Can't I get it to my workstation? Ansible workstation? Yes. Then if I include that configuration file in GitHub, wouldn't it get tracked? Sure. This is your actual server where you already modified the port number, correct? Node. This is one of the node. Let's verify that. I'll say grep listen /etc httpd configuration. Now this file, I'll bring it to my Ansible workstation. Now, let me show you now. Let it be here. Oh, sorry. Oh, you can use it, right? Okay, CentOS at the rate this server, which is 172.31.3.175. In this, where the file is? Did you get the point what I did? I went into node 2, I copied the config file and I kept it under my playbooks. Now this will also get tracked. Now can't I update in that and clearly say this file is configured to work with 9090? Why? Because it has now 9090. I hope you got the logic, everyone. Correct? Right. So now I'll say this is already there with 9090. You can just check the same thing. Grep listen http.conf and you see it's already set to 9090. So I don't need to make any changes also. Now I'll add the thing to my Git so that, sorry. What we did? that's how we can see like this file is already configured with port 9090. In version control also you have all the history with you. Good. Okay. Now this part is done. Now the thing is, this file where it should be updated in node 1. That's it, right? Your goal is what? Your site, you want to run it on 9090. It is not working. Why it is not working? This will give you the sense. Ansible N1. I mean, like I'm checking to show you like whether it's set to the port or not. N1 -m module command. I'll say grep listen /etc httpd conf which port it is updated 80. That's the default one. Now what I'll do is I'll write this file to N1. How am I going to do that? We already saw it was this module called copy module. What it is taking? Source and destination. Perfect. What is the playbook we have written? 8th one. Okay. 08 port configuration. Update N1. Ensure config file updated. What is the module name? Copy takes what and what? What is the source file? The one which is there in my machine, the workstation, where it should be updated to /etc. Take the source, copy it to destination. Once this part is done, what is the next step? So you only did this step right now. Second step, set the SC Linux to permissive mode. By default, it is enforcing. We need to set to permissive. So how I can do that is, you don't need to worry. We have been given all these options. Ansible. You got SC Linux module. Do you want it to be enforcing or do you want it to be permissive? Getting the point is? Yes. Now we want this mode, right? Yes. Now I'll say ensure SC Linux permissive. What is the module name? What options it is taking? State equal to right. And once it is done, what is the next step? We need to restart. And for this, you already know the module should be which module? Service module. Service only, right? Yes. Why? Because you already know started, stopped, what is there? You started it. Now we are going to restart it. What the point is? Right. Now let's see. I'll also just do a reconfirmation. Still on node 1, it is 80. Now let's apply the new playbook which we created. See, that's what I said, right? So you know, like, sorry, if you know how to get the things done from the manual perspective, it's just taking and applying it from the answer. That's all you need to do. You don't know it manually, no one can do anything about it. If you know your infrastructure, how it works, in the long run, managing with Ansible is easy. So let's do the confirmation. Yes. It got modified. Yes. Now it is got to 1990. I can just check your site too. Now I don't need to worry about going to different place and do the modification. If I want something else, now the client says he wants it to run it on 8080. What I'll do? You much got pretty much what you need. So now just I'll change it like a variable. And yes, we also have variables concept that we'll see. It becomes much more easy. Clear? Yes, I hope you got the point, everyone. So this is how you need to start working with your Ansible parts, right? Okay. So any questions on this part? Yes, you can go ahead. Yes. Right. So it's more of programming kind of things. Like it's nothing to go with questions or something. You need to know how your physical or what you say your infra works first. Then you start slowly taking them into what you say code format using Ansible. And now once everything is done, like you see, I was going and exactly doing the same thing, right? So I know now what changes I made. So I'm going to say git add http.conf and I'm going to say commit and I'll say port is 8080 this time and also git add 08 playbook and I'm going to say git commit -m port config. And if GitHub is there, I'll just go ahead and push the changes and you're good to go. Clear? Yes, I hope now you got the essence. Now there is one more thing that we need to discuss still, like variables. So we will see how to define variables so that it can be much more easy to control the changes. And once that variables are done, then we have functions like Ansible roles. We'll check that part and then you're good with your, what do you say, Ansible. Then next we'll go with Docker, like one by one. Now Docker solves completely different problems. Right? Like I already said, every tool has a different purpose. Now, if you do the comparison with Jenkins and Ansible, now it makes sense. Jenkins can't do all these things. That's the reason why we are using this particular thing for changes. Basically, you want to configure your infrastructure, you want to go ahead and check the changes properly, then this is the tool you need to rely on. Similarly, once you get to see Docker, then you will see completely a different approach. Then Docker, it has its own what do you say way to work out with the things. You'll understand like why we need to use the Docker as well. Then Kubernetes, like that we will go in to check all these steps. All right. Okay. Chalo. Fine guys, I'll stop it in the next session. We'll do few more things from the Ansible, then we'll close it off.